Welcome to episode 124 of the Family Answer Man. We are today talking about when politics create delusional disorders that disrupt your holiday gathering from a biblical worldview. I'm David Rogers, and I am here with Dr. Mark Crosby. He is a pastor, educator, marriage and family therapist, and the resident expert here on the Family Answer Man podcast. Now, Family Answer Man is not a therapy session. We're not able to give specific advice to your unique circumstances, but we do believe that spiritual and mental health are very serious issues. So for in-depth answers to your questions, definitely want to encourage you to seek professional counsel for your unique circumstances. Before we jump in today, if you would go ahead and hit the notification bell and subscribe to our YouTube channel, that would help us out a lot. And if you do that, you'll never miss an episode of the Family Answer Man. And if you're on a podcast, listening on podcasts, if you'll rate and review us, that also gets us up to the top of the feed, and we appreciate that a lot. You can also, as always, help grow the Family Answer Man community by inviting and sharing the show with your family and your friends so they can join you on your journey of having a happier, healthier, stronger family. Well, Dr. Mark, good to be here with you today.
Yes.
We have a good question,
yes,
and we actually have a follow-up question that we're hoping to address that came in after our last episode. But if people have a question, they can always reach us at our email address, familyanswerman@liveoak.church, familyanswerman@liveoak.church. And it's a great way to ask those questions, help us know what you guys want to hear, what we can help you with so that you can have a stronger, healthier, happier family.
Right.
Today, our question is great title.
Yeah.
Love the title for the show.
Yeah.
When politics create delusional disorders that disrupt your holiday gathering. I think that's going to get a lot of attention and perk up a lot of ears.
Yep.
Delusional disorders, is that a common phrase, or is that an actual psychological term that has a diagnosable?
That is
symptoms?
a diagnostic. Delusional disorder is a diagnostic reality found in the diagnostic manual. And so, yes, it's something that is used to identify whenever someone, and we'll talk about this more in a moment, but whenever someone believes something that has no basis in reality, and there is no evidence to support this particular belief or this particular delusion. And so, again, it is a reality. It is something that people do suffer from. It's something that people, unfortunately, have to experience due to different reasons that we'll talk about in a moment. But it is a definable diagnosis that we need to be aware of, and that is often treated both with therapy and medication.
We can see how that would definitely disrupt the holiday gathering.
Yes.
So the question that we have today, again, you can email your questions in, or you can comment if you're watching on YouTube. familyanswerman@liveoak.church, familyanswerman@liveoak.church. The question is this. It says, my sister-in-law is telling everyone that if they didn't vote for her candidate, they're not welcome to her home for the holidays.
Yeah.
Because concentration camps are being built for all of those who have voted the wrong way, and women are going to lose all their rights and all their freedoms. What is this, and what do you say?
Wow. Yeah. Unfortunately,
question.
This is the climate that we live in. This is the times that we live in. And unfortunately, you're seeing a lot of this being played out in various parts of our nation. You even see this maybe on late night television, where there are various hosts that are talking about all the terrible things that are going to happen now that the election is over, all the things that are going to go wrong, all the people that are going to be hurt, all the rights are going to be thrown out. And these things basically have no real sincere basis in reality. And so again, we have to be mindful of this, but yet still people are saying this sort of thing. People are saying all kind of things about concentration camps, or losing all your rights and freedoms, and never being able to vote again, and everybody's going to be, put in chains if they did not vote the right way, and the list could go on. And this is unfortunate, but this is the propaganda that is being shared and said and spewed with no real sense of fact or reality.
Yeah, it's become part of the political rhetoric that has become so popular.
And because of that, there are a lot of people who are now, in their mind, their way of responding and reacting is to disconnect from their family, detach from their spouse, no longer love their spouse, no longer show them love and attention or affection. And they are going to boycott their spouse. They're going to boycott, maybe even their church or whomever, because the vote did not go their way. And so unfortunately, this is being said and done by various groups all over the country. And it seems to be taking gaining some traction, I should say, and starting to become almost epidemic for a lot of families. And unfortunately, some may be inside the church as well. So church pastors and those involved in the church are not immune from this sort of thing happening. So let's just kind of unpack this for a moment, because we've used the word and the phrase delusional disorder.
Right. It's fun phrase to say, delusional disorder.
Right.
What does that really mean? What does that really entail?
First of all, it is a very real diagnosis. It is not, cliche. It's not a description. It's a real, diagnosis. And again, as we said earlier, it's believing in something that has no basis in reality. There's no evidence to support this particular belief or delusion, and there's no research or reality that supports it as well. So there's no evidence, there's no research, there's no practical, rational reason to believe this, but yet still a person does. And so again, what we have to understand is that when there is no ample evidence to one's belief, when there is no research to support it, but a person believes it anyway, then again, that becomes a problem or a disruption or a disorder. It'd be kind of like saying that I know that my next door neighbors are from the planet, Otto, and I'm sure they are really underneath their skin of humanoid look. They're really reptiles. And because they're reptiles, they are going to do some crazy things to perhaps my plants or to my animals. And I'm watching them every night because I know, they're eventually going to do something unfortunate to my dogs, my cats, my animals, my pets, my plants, because they're reptilian, really. Now, that's a delusion.
Yeah.
Because there's no real evidence that would support that your next door neighbors are really reptiles underneath their humanoid exterior. But yet and still, this is what begins to happen. That's kind of a bizarre example, but again, this is the example that's often used, or that can be used, to share and to declare what delusional thinking or delusional disorder really is.
Right.
So again, it's believing in something that has no basis in reality, no evidence to support it, no research or reality to support what is being said or believed. Now, there are 6 primary types of delusional disorder that we need to be mindful of. Again, we are aware of these. We've seen these. Some will be more noticeable than others. For example, the first one is erotomanic. The erotomanic delusional disorder is believing someone is in love with you, but they don't even know you. So erotomanic delusional disorder is the person who thinks that maybe some famous celebrity, some great athlete, someone that perhaps you've never met, but somewhere, some way, somehow we've made a connection. Somewhere, some way, somehow, maybe you saw them, you're up in the stands and you saw them and they looked up and they saw you too, and your eyes connected.
Eye contact.
Your eyes contacted and you heard her say or heard him say, you could read their lips, I love you. And now all of a sudden they are in love with you. Now, again, this is a delusional disorder because there is no basis in reality. There is no research. There's no evidence that supports that this athlete, that this star, this musician, whomever, is in love with you. But that's called erotomanic delusional disorder. Maybe we saw this, even to this day, where people go to the concert and they're on the front row and they just know they made a connection with that singer, that musician, whomever. Number 2. Very similar, but number 2 is a grandiose type. In other words, you have a talent, you have a superpower, you have an insight that no one else is aware of. And sometimes this happens in our religious communities. Sometimes this happens in our churches. Many pastors that are listening perhaps have had someone in their congregation come up and say to them, Pastor, God told me the world's going to end tomorrow. Or I have an insight with God. Or there was a time when there was a lot of people that were involved with what I call the God told me movement. And unfortunately, the evidence was pretty clear that God didn't tell them. And so, but again, there's that grandiose sense of I have a, line, if you will, directly to the throne room of God, and He tells me things. And sometimes what He tells me may not line up with His word, but He told me. Okay, so this is a grandiose type of delusional disorder that some people have. Others may think they have some sort of superpower. Others may think that they're capable of pitching, for the Texas Rangers, and they've never picked up a baseball. But they have this ability and they can do this. Some believe they have the skills of Bruce Lee and they've never been to a karate lesson. Though the point is that this grandiose type of belief is a type of delusion. Next is the jealous type. This person often believes their spouse is unfaithful. Or that their significant other is unfaithful, even though there's no evidence whatsoever. They believe that they're unfaithful, and they will look at maybe their phone and they'll see a number they don't recognize, and it could be just a crank call or whatever. But yet still, that's your boyfriend that's calling. That's your girlfriend that's calling. So they have this sense of jealousy that is not based on any fact. And the one that we're going to be looking at today quite a bit is the one where you feel persecution, where the person feels that they are being persecuted, the persecutory type of delusion, where, again, you're being conspired against, spied on, poisoned, drugged, maligned, your phones are being tapped. The FBI or the CIA or some other, the KGB or whomever, some other, agency is tapping your phones because they're trying to read your mind. They're trying to find out what's going on with you. They're trying to see if you are a threat to the state or to the nation or to the world. And so you don't answer your phone, or you don't pick up if there's a number you don't recognize per se, or you believe that maybe your microwave is going to blow up because it's, it was tapped by some agency. So whenever you feel like you're being persecuted, conspired against, spied upon, poisoned, and this is kind of what's happening today. We'll unpack this more in a moment. But this is what I'm kind of sensing, that these individuals who feel as if, the people who voted differently than they did is now going to create some sort of nation or world where they have no rights, no freedoms. They're going to be put in concentration camps. They're going to be enslaved. They're going to be put in chains. They're going to be somehow, persecuted on some level that we haven't seen in almost 100 years. But in their mind, this is what's going to happen. Another type of delusion is the somatic delusional disorder, where there's a bodily function or sensation that you feel is happening to you. This is the person who feels like their body is infested by insects. They have maybe a mosquito bite. They go, you see here, I'm just infested. They're crawling through my skin. Or maybe a body part that doesn't work. For some reason, they feel as if they are paralyzed, and there's absolutely no physiological reason for their paralysis. And last of all, there's a mixed group where there's kind of a combination of some of these that happens. So the question again is this. The question is that many are asking is, what is this persecution delusion? What's that all about? And in this question, if you're just tuning in, the question was about, is it possible, or this particular sister-in-law is saying that she doesn't want her family over because they didn't vote the right way, and therefore all women will lose their freedoms. This is a persecution delusion. Again, the fact that freedoms of women will be lost, there's no evidence to support that. There is absolutely no basis in saying that. There's no basis for concentration camps being built for political enemies. There's no evidence of this. There's no basis for this. There is a Congress. There is a Supreme Court. There are mayors. There are governors. There are, various other agencies that would not allow this. But yet and still, they believe this is happening. And so these individuals who have this persecution delusion have this fear of danger of imprisonment. And because of that, they feel that anybody who voted differently than they voted is not welcomed in their home. So they have this sense of victimhood. These individuals feel like they're a victim. They feel like everybody's against them, and they feel like they have to do something that is defensive and aggressive. And that's basically what this is all about. A person who struggles with this type of delusional disorder feel like they have to be defensive. They have to be aggressive. They have to take a stand. They have to push back. They have to do something. And this can be dangerous sometimes. Sometimes these people will say things and do things that, again, can be on the brink or beyond of doing something very criminal, dangerous, very aggressive. And so you have to be careful of what's going on here. And so this is what's taking place, it sounds like, in this particular question.
Okay.
So if you're just tuning in, you have a sister that's saying to her family members, if you voted differently than me, you cannot come to my home for the holidays because what you said and who you voted for is going to put me in chains. That's delusional.
Right. So that's more than just a conspiracy theory. Oh, we've all seen the maps of, well, the United States is going to have, 13 districts and it's going to be Hunger Games versus these are real fears. These are real. And they have real actions that come from
these
them.
fears are real.
Yeah.
They believe this just as much as you believe that, you've got 4 children. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So this is what this is all about. So where do these delusional thoughts come from? That's the next question people ask. Where do these delusional thoughts come from? So if you're just tuning in, we're talking about delusional disorder. But first of all, there are pathological sources. In other words, a mental illness or a psychosis. Psychosis simply is a break from reality. Neurologically speaking, mentally speaking, you have this break from reality and you cannot discern what's real from what's not real. Psychosis can be due to schizophrenia, which is a very severe mental illness. Sometimes in bipolar mood swings, from manic to depression, you may have in that gap, if you will, this sense of psychosis where there's going to be this delusional type of thinking. Substance abuse can cause delusions. If a person is in some sort of inebriated state of alcoholism or whatever, they'll start seeing things and saying things like, you ran out on me, or you're cheating on me, or you're probably, the devil or whatever. And so what happens is they actually believe that. Mm-hmm. So sometimes substance abuse can cause delusions. And also too, just believing false beliefs, misinformation, biases that are emotional, that basically are on overdrive, maybe due to a lack of sleep or fatigue, and you start believing things and embracing things that are just illogical, and you form these illogical conclusions, and that begins to create a level of this belief system and this delusion. But the reality is this: but any belief that is opposite of sound evidence and sound reason is basically, again, a candidate for a delusional thought. Any belief that is opposite of sound evidence and sound reason or undeniable research is a candidate for this delusional reality. So there's something else we need to talk about too. These are basically what we've been talking about, what we call maybe severe delusional, a severe delusional diagnosis. But there's also a subclinical delusional ideation.
And explain subclinical for people
that means basically that these delusional beliefs are not necessarily pathological, that there could be a hint of truth to it, very unlikely, extremely unlikely maybe, but it gives you some sense of, it's possible this could be happening, whatever this is. So again, a subclinical delusional ideation are delusional beliefs, but not necessarily pathological beliefs. It's where bottom line, it's where you magnify one thing and put too much emphasis or give it too much credibility or weight. For example, if you go outside and maybe your tire's flat. Now, all of a sudden, if you start thinking, well, maybe there's some gangs in my neighborhood and they're going through the neighborhood flattening everybody's tire. Is that a possibility? It's a possibility.
Right. It's in the realm of,
But maybe you just ran over a tack.
Right.
But this person is going to actually believe that somebody, or maybe, maybe it's not as far-fetched as a gang, but maybe, you think your neighbor is out to get you.
Sabotaging.
Your neighbor's out to get you because, you rooted for Alabama and they won and LSU lost. And because you rooted for Alabama, you're thinking maybe they, took the air out of my tire. Or maybe you just ran over a tack. Or maybe you just ran over a nail. Mm-hmm. But again, the reality is that you still don't or won't look at the evidence that contradicts your position. Mm. Even if you go and you pull the nail out of your tire, you'll say, well, maybe the neighbor put the nail in my tire. Maybe that's what happened. So again, this is something important to note. But the reality is this: whatever delusion you may be struggling with, if you have this delusion that lasts for more than a month, and that's the key part too. if you keep these delusions and you hold on to these delusions for more than a month. In other words, if this sister-in-law says, for the next month or the next 2 months or whatever, no one's coming to my house for the holidays because you voted the wrong way, that now becomes a delusional disorder. Otherwise, it may just be anger, it just may be frustration,
Right.
it may just be a sense of, sour grapes or whatever you want to call it. But if it lasts for more than a month, now it becomes a delusional disorder. So if this delusional type disrupts a person's, again, daily routine, responsibilities, or relationships, 3 R's. If this delusion that you're going through disrupts a person's daily routine, their daily responsibilities, and their daily relationships, then it becomes a real problem.
Okay.
So this is what we need to know. So how do you help someone? That's the question many will ask. How do you help someone who struggles with a delusional disorder? So let's just say this sister-in-law that doesn't want anybody coming over to their house who didn't vote the way she voted. How do you handle this? How do you help someone who's delusional is the question. Well, if their delusion is extreme, it's almost impossible.
Okay.
If their delusion, in other words, if they just believe that the neighbors are, lizard people from another planet in a humanoid, outer exterior, and they believe that with all their heart, there's no changing that. Okay. Sometimes you have to go along with them until the delusion's lost its energy. And in other words, instead of pushing back, sometimes you have to, they could be, maybe we just need to stay home, or maybe we should kind of keep your pets inside. As long as what their delusion is, it doesn't become a threat or a danger to them or to others. Okay. If a person, just believes that, their phone has been tapped, by the CIA or the FBI, you may say, well, you might want to be careful as to what you say, if that's what you really, really believe, or, be suspicious or of any numbers. Just don't answer the phone every time it rings. And so you just kind of go along for a moment until it loses its energy, or until they realize for themselves, you know what, I was really just delusional at the time. And so the reality is that sometimes, you might want to just kind of go along just to kind of, so they don't push back, they don't become more irritable and more anxious and more angry, and now you become a part of their delusion, part of their conspiracy. Now, not everybody agrees with that. I understand that, but I've seen that work to some degree. But again, for those who have what I would call a less severe delusion or subclinical delusion, there's a few things that you can do, and this may be helpful in this particular case. Number one, intervene early before it fully forms. In other words, give proof up front. Let them see, what, the way our government works, there is state and there is federal and there is local and there is laws, and we're a nation of laws. And so no one can just come in and change all the laws. We have a nation and a system of checks and balance. And so just intervene before the delusion fully takes effect, if you will. Give proof up front as to what their concerns are. Number two, know how to reason with them with evidence that makes sense to them. Learn how to reason with them with evidence that makes sense to them. You can say, look, if there were concentration camps, this group or that agency or that news outlet they would be reporting this. Things would be happening.
Be all over TikTok.
It'd be all over.
Yeah, that's right.
And also too, hey, look, women have rights and privileges, and the right to vote happened over 100 years ago, and you will keep that right to vote, and no one's going to take away that right to vote, and on it goes. It's kind of like, not to go down this road too far, but I noticed that in a particular clip, one of the guests on The View said to the ladies, if y'all really believed what you were spouting a few weeks ago, you would not be here today. But here you are earning your $60 million a year. Here you are, with your coffee and all the makeup artists and all the, help that you have. Here you are driving your fancy car, living in your nice, condo, whatever. And nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. So the point is simply this. Again, know how to reason with people who struggle with this with evidence that makes sense to them. Next, don't judge their reasoning or their lack thereof. In other words, don't be condescending. Don't be judging. you may even, fourthly, ask what evidence would change their mind. In other words, what would it take for you to believe that what you are now believing is not factual or actual? And if they say nothing, there's nothing that's going to change my mind, now you have a delusion that's pathological.
Right.
But if they say, if I could just hear from someone, if I could just hear from an eyewitness, if I could just, if someone would just say to me, if someone of importance could say this is how it's going to be, I would listen to that and I'd be okay with that. Okay. At least there's something, that would change their mind.
Right.
Next, don't insert emotion. In other words, don't laugh at them. Don't get irritated with them. Don't be disgusted with them. Next, present an opinion with a sense of flexibility. In other words, say to them, here's some things that you may need to know. Here's an opinion that you may want to consider, but present an opinion with some flexibility. In other words, also too, say, I can definitely see how you came to that conclusion. I can definitely see how you'd go there, but the evidence doesn't seem to support it. Bottom line, leave them with some dignity. Again, say to them, I can see why this is concerning to you, or I can see how this is a new perspective to you, but let me give you some new evidence.
Yeah.
So again, just be mindful that delusional disorder is a fixed belief that you hold on to in spite of the evidence. There is, again, different types. This is different from paranoia, by the way. Paranoia is suspicions, but not delusions. So again, because a paranoid person realizes that their suspicions may not be always true. For some, these delusions may run their course. Sometimes antipsychotics like risperidone may be prescribed by their doctor. So just simply ask, in this case, what is important to you? Other topics can be talked about other than who you voted for. Sometimes you need to take a stand. Oftentimes, just nod and grin and be patient with the person who is struggling with this delusion. Learn how to reframe, learn how to create a diversion. Bottom line, learn how to keep your family healthy and intact, especially during the holiday season.
Yeah.
So that'll end that part of our program. But what we also want to do, we did have a follow-up of a question concerning the emotional abuse.
Yeah, and the question was, what do you do when you have somebody in your life that's emotionally abusive to you?
Right.
It's a family member, but they have a severe illness.
So again, that always complicates things because you're never sure when you'll see them again. You're never
Right.
sure if you'll see them the next Thanksgiving or next Christmas.
Yeah.
But yet still, you want to guard yourself and you'll protect yourself from being emotionally abused. Once again, I would say, if they are important to you, invite them to the family gathering, invite them to the holiday. But at the same time, learn how to, as we said a while ago, learn how to create a boundary, learn how to basically reframe whatever it is they're trying to do, learn how to create a diversion if they get too boisterous and too abusive. Learn how, again, to maybe be patient with them. And again, as we said earlier, have that sense of support from the rest of the family members so if they become obnoxious or they become abusive or they become arrogant. You can excuse yourself. You can maybe redirect the flow of the conversation. And everyone kind of knows what to expect and everybody kind of knows what cues to follow. Mm-hmm. If you inform them, hey, look, Aunt so-and-so is coming over. We're not sure how long we have with her. That she can sometimes get on a kick and start ranting and raving about this and that and say all kind of unkind things. But you know what? We're just going to love her through this. We'll create a boundary if she gets too obnoxious. And we'll just excuse ourselves or we'll just do something else.
Just having healthy expectations.
Just know in advance what's about to happen and then have a game plan so that you know what to do in the event that someone wants to be abusive, obnoxious, take over, be arrogant at the family gathering, especially during the holiday season.
And for those people, and like you were saying earlier, when dealing with delusions, a phrase I like is, could be.
That's right.
Could be.
Could be.
There you go.
Could be.
Well, there you have it
like
from the Family Answer Man. We're thankful that you joined us again. Thank you for being part of this community. We really do hope that every episode of the Family Answer Man is helpful to you, that it is encouraging, and that you guys are making changes that are leading to stronger, healthier, happier families.